Level up with the new AAA Commanders MVP membership. Get all the benefits of AAA plus exclusive experiences, discounts, and tickets. Already a AAA member, upgrade for free at AAA.com/commanders. Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Hey, babies. Happy Tuesday, everybody. Oh, Nelly Callow. Oh, Nelly. Oh, the world's almost coming to a halt. Jayden's hurt. This is not good, man. This is not good.
It's not serious, though, from what, the reports say. And as I said, it's not like it's Joe Burrow where less than 24 hours later, we knew he was having surgery, and out for 3 months. So this is wait and see. It feels very much like last year, right? Where he was hurt, didn't need any surgery or anything. We're going to find out more on Wednesday. And as the week goes, cautiously optimistic over here is what I'll say.
Well, last year it was a rib injury. So that's different.
Sure.
Right,
sure.
That's different.
Yes, you're right.
You can choose to play with something like that as long as the doctors don't believe that a bad hit would cause something serious to happen to you. And as we found out in the offseason, it was actually way worse than they actually let on. Remember that? He let the cat out of the bag that he was playing with broken ribs and not with what they called strained ribs at the time. Not that I care that they lied about it or whatever, kept it from us. Like, fair is fair and love and war. Like, whatever, that's fine.
Right.
This is different because it's a knee. And for me to have any kind of real sense of it, I would need to know exactly what it is. And I don't. I'm an amateur orthopedist these days because of going through this through the years and knowing which ligament or they're talking about, or bone bruise, maybe, or meniscus, maybe. Any of these things, I would have a better sense of what we're talking about here. But I, like so far everyone else I've talked to, do not know exactly what the problem is. To your point, if this was serious, I think they would put him on IR immediately and they would shelve him. And we would hear what's going to happen, whether it's short-term IR, long-term IR, whatever it is. Because that didn't happen, because they're saying he's probably going to try to practice tomorrow, then this comes down to it is an injury. It's not one that should put him, on the shelf for a long period of time, but it's concerning enough. And we're talking about probably two things: pain maintenance and stability. And both of those things are going to have to be dealt with through the course of the week. And I guess we'll just see where we end up by the end of it.
Yeah, I mean, and on top of this too, it's how Jayden plays, right? I'm not going to compare Jayden to RG3 like some people are doing, over the last 24 hours. But I'll say Jayden does whatever it takes to win, which means sometimes putting the ball down and taking off and running. It's not his go-to, obviously, but we've seen him do it plenty of times. He's one of the most hit quarterbacks in the NFL to this point. I think Mina Kimes said he's actually the most hit through these first 2 weeks. He does whatever it takes to win. My concern with that is you don't turn that off. Like, you can't turn that off is really what it is. And that at some point he's going to just get hit. And it could be the wrong way. And we know that the guy is not the biggest guy in the world. And that's what I'm concerned about, is him injuring this further more than kind of the maintenance part of all of this.
I hate the RG3 stuff. One, because it was clear he should never have gone back into that game. And
right.
I don't know that that's the case here with Jayden. If he's dragging his leg around, I'll say the same thing that I said then when I saw that, which is you need to protect him from himself. This staff, and this is not a, chief complaint of the Shanahans, but this staff doesn't do that, or they haven't done it yet. They have not put anybody out there. In fact, they're typically more careful with players, and they like to say all the time, we're not going to miss a step, is what they say about it. Now, I understand this guy's different, and the season, hinges on him being healthy through the majority of it. And at this point, they're going to have to make a choice with him about that. But I remember being at that playoff game against Seattle and watching RG3 walk back out there and going, guys, you need to pull him off the field. This is not good. And I watched the end of the Packers game again last night. That's not the case here. He was able to finish the game. He was able to move. He was noticeably limping a little bit. He clearly was in some pain. I interviewed him after the game. I saw him. He wasn't walking oddly afterwards. I would tell you if he was. He was not. So, this is clearly not that. Okay? This is not that. But I could hear, like, if he goes out there and plays this weekend, he gets injured, people are going to make the assumption. I don't think that would be fair. There are plenty of players, just about all of them, play with knee braces or play with things, and this is what they do. What will they do here? I will also say this, what I think is very different about him, and it's not happened the first couple of weeks here, and that's something that Cliff needs to think about, which is he last year was extremely good at protecting himself. Like, yes, he ran a lot. Yes, he took some hits, but often he tried to get out of bounds. He tried to go down. He did not take RG3 took unnecessary hits all the time. It was a chief complaint about him. It was a chief complaint that he for some reason would not use the rules to his advantage. He wouldn't slide. He wouldn't go out of bounds when the play was basically over. And he took too many unnecessary hits, and it caught up to him when Haloti Ngata basically shredded him in two. That's actually not what Jayden does. I want to credit Green Bay for playing probably the best defensive game plan against him that I've seen in his young career. But for the most part last year, I know Mina's saying he's being hit too much this year. Last year, I did not get that sense because he protected himself. So I believe in confidently that if he does go out there, he will do that. But I also do agree he needs to play the way he plays. And if he's not going to do that because he's fearful of anything, then that's a problem too. So this is a tricky little situation here. The rib thing, I think, was different. He played through it. He didn't even hint it was as bad as it was. I have a feeling his demeanor is going to be the same thing about something like this if he goes out there. It would be interesting to see if they put a brace on it or not, and what that would mean if they do or they don't do that. And then I guess we'll just have to wait and see and find out what happens here. But, this is not great. I mean, obviously, just the way that the offense is played, how many people have gone in and out. The injuries now to Noah Brown was described as a long shot of playing this weekend.
Yep.
John Bates was described as a long shot of playing this weekend. Austin Eckler is out for the season. And now superstar quarterback is wobbly, to go. Oh, man. This is a rough start to the season here for the offense specifically.
Obviously, the Jayden news is it is what it is. I won't even call it good or bad. I think we all know avoiding any kind of major injuries is a win overall here. But the one that is going to be devastating to me, at least, is John Bates. This offensive line hasn't played well these first 2 weeks. They've been inconsistent, I think, is what I would say. And granted, last week on Green Bay, how much are you chalking it up to them having one of the best pass rushers, if not the best pass rush in the league, with an offensive line that has a rookie tackle and guys that are starting to gel together? That mixture, though, of them not being able to gel quite yet and losing your best blocking tight end, essentially a sixth offensive lineman, and having Max Crosby come to town, it's just a bad mix that's getting ready to be mixed all up, and it could be a bad result for this team. I hate the Bates injury more than all of them. I think you were right yesterday. Noah Brown was getting hurt at some point. We just didn't know when. I don't think anyone anticipated, week 3. But here we are. I don't think that one's that shocking. But the John Bates one is the one that I think is actually going to be probably the one that they feel the most, besides Jayden, of course.
There is literal no replacement for him.
Right.
I was talking to Logan Paulson yesterday. I'll play some of this later for the Booth Review podcast. And he's like, because I'm bothered by Eckler too. I think Eckler is their most experienced, the player they would count on in clutch situations to be the running back. And Logan was like, listen, I don't want to diminish his role, but they've got other guys that can do this and they'll figure it out with other guys. Bates is the one they can't replace. There is no 1-for-1 replacement for him. So they lose him, and it's going to alter how they think about running their playbook. And it's going to alter because he plays such a big role for the whole thing, blocking for them. So this is really tricky. I agree. The Raiders didn't look so good last night. That's a good sign for them to have to turn around short week. Go to the East Coast second time in 3 weeks, and I'll get to them in a little bit. But the Bates one bothers me, but the Jayden one's it. I mean,
of course.
Come on, guys. The season hinges on number 5 getting through it, and it's unrealistic to think that in his career he's not going to suffer injuries. He is. I don't like the lazy narrative stuff, which is well, don't let this be like RG3. Come on, man. Are you going to say to the Bengals, this is the 4th time Joe Burrow's gotten hurt? What are you doing over there? Come on. Come on.
The real Cliff Notes version of RG3 is always very easy. It was all about the ownership. Robert saw Kirk Cousins playing well, decided to come back early, did come back early, won that game against the Cowboys, then got hurt against the Seahawks and didn't want to relinquish the starting role again to Kirk because Dan got involved. That's the Cliff Notes version. We are nowhere close to that at this point. There's no comparison to that scenario, maybe ever again. For this franchise. So it's just worth spitting that out for people that want to make the narrative of, oh, they're going to get RG3 hurt again. RG3 got RG3 hurt. It was not the team that did this when it came down to it. The ownership enabled him to get hurt, I guess is really what I would say.
So, we don't know what's going to happen. We'll find out, later this week. But Marcus Mariota would be in line to start if necessary. And in the spot duty he had a year ago, he actually was very good. Led them down. And I mean, I know it didn't matter. It was week 18 and the result didn't ultimately matter, but like he did lead them down the field, had a great 4th down conversion with that fake where he kept it, hit McLaurin on one of the many last second touchdowns that they scored a year ago. When he came in, I know they boat raced Carolina, but when he came in against Carolina that's when Jayden got hurt last year, he was very good in all of the spot moments for him. This offense really kind of works for him. That said, this offense was operating very differently last year than it is currently this year. And I mean, it's worth saying too, he also didn't practice very much throughout the summer. It didn't matter as much because Jayden was out there every day. But I remember towards the end of the preseason, like asking Quinn, like, how serious is this injury with him? Because Hartman really had a rough summer. And Johnson, didn't instill a lot of confidence if he had to be the backup quarterback to start the season because the preseason didn't go particularly well for the offense and for them. Johnson had a lot of turnovers. Hartman really was ineffective in general. And so I wasn't surprised that Johnson won the job. But I remember thinking like opening day, I'm like, God, if Jayden like rolls his ankle or something, all of a sudden we got to throw this guy out there. Like, how's that going to go? It was because Mariota was barely practicing. He had Achilles tendonitis. By the end of the summer, he was like warming up for the Baltimore game and he was in practice and, I guess all's well that ends well. But again, like this is another one where he was one of them that also did not practice throughout the summer, like throughout the entire summer where the offense wasn't clicking particularly well because there were a lot of people in and out. Underrated now, and it's a big deal, is he also wasn't part of the practice regimen. So color be concerned about that too. That like, I trust if he goes into play that I'll get the player that I saw last year. I'm assuming that he's healthy and all of that stuff. But he's also walking into a very different situation where the offense is not operating at the level that it did a year ago and has not really since through camp and through the first couple weeks of the season.
No, I mean, the concern level goes up because he hasn't been out there with the starters, and as you just mentioned, it wasn't good throughout the summer. Do I think it would improve with him stepping in there? I'm not holding my breath. So like, that's where I'm landing here. It also is worth saying, he came in after that first drive in the Panthers game. The Panthers were the worst team in football in the first half of last year. They were one of the worst, teams overall, but that first half, they were downright terrible. So the way that the offense was clicking last year, it wasn't a shock that he could move the ball. And maybe it was a bit of a shock they blew him out, but still, he was moving the ball really well. That Cowboys game, they hung with him, but the Cowboys had their backup quarterback as well. I chalk this one up. Yes, the Raiders looked bad last night, but you and I have talked about them in the offseason. They've got Pete Carroll. They've got Geno Smith. I know he didn't look great last night. They've got Crosby. They've got Genty. They've got players and a professional head coach. You don't assume anything with a veteran team like that either. That's where I don't really like the matchup here. This is not like the Panthers where it's this young, up-and-coming team where they haven't found their stride at all yet. This is a veteran-laden team, and now, they're sitting at 1-1, just lost a divisional game. I don't like the anger they're probably about to come in with as well. It's just a big recipe that I don't like if it gets all mixed up like this, that I don't like the scenario that Washington is in at this point.
Yeah, this is the same as week one. The defense got to step up and play really, really well.
Right. Right.
I feel this exact same way that I did about the Giants game where I go, I don't care what the final score is, just win. Yep. We're surviving advance right now until everything gets back on track. And considering how many injuries have just occurred, it may take longer to get back on track. My mind was, through the summer going, it's going to be a slow start for the offense, but they'll figure it out. Like they'll figure their quarterback is too good. The offensive coordinator is too good. The players are too good. Terry will get up to speed. Tunsil's a big upgrade. They'll be fine. They'll be fine. I'm not surprised through the first couple of weeks who got all the targets that it's Ertz and Debo. They were the two people who were there out there all summer that were practicing with Jayden. But now all this. And so I kept feeling like just survive this first couple of months. You have a couple of home games that feel very winnable. If you just go out and do that, your record's fine. And then when everything kind of, connects, and I believe it will at some point, everything will be fine. Well, we just got a huge monkey wrench thrown into the whole thing because of the injuries. And so how long is this going to take before they get everybody back out there to try to get this thing going? This is going to be attrition now. It's going to take a while. It's going to take a while to get this offense to a place. If they can get everybody back out on the field at the same time, it's going to take a while to get this going. So this is a win by any means necessary situation for a while. And then hopefully the injury luck will turn for them at some point in the middle of the season. And then hopefully it'll all click and start going the other direction. I, in my mind, had it being, I was like, this is going to take a few weeks at least to get them out on the field, get them out there together. Let's see how everything functions. And then everything will get better. Now with all the missing pieces, it may take longer. And I'm braced for that it's going to be a struggle offensively for them to figure out what they're good at, what they're capable of, and then hopefully Jayden's fine, and then he'll be back out there sooner rather than later, whether that's this weekend or not, and then we'll start that build back up. But it's going to take a while. It really, I don't see any way around it. There's no miracle cure for what's going on here. It's going to take a little while for the offense to come around, if it does at all this year.
No, I mean, it's multiple things that need to click too, right? It's the offensive line needs to play a little more cohesive. Whatever the running back situation is needs to settle out now too. I mean, I know Quinn said yesterday that it was, it's going to be more by committee at this point, which is basically what you and I were saying yesterday, which isn't a shock. But I also think there's some weight on the wide receivers here. Terry needs to start getting open a little more. I think that's been a concern, and I'm not surprised at that he didn't practice and then, had to jump right in. But it's been a rough go of it for his season start. I also think on the other side, in terms of age and at the bottom of the depth chart, Jalen Lane's, he got some chances on Thursday because of the injury to Noah Brown. He's going to have to step up because he's going to get some snaps here. There's just a lot of things here that now all of a sudden are coming together. And now you take away number 5 from all of it. It kind of all gets thrown out the window because now you're just, like you said, surviving and advancing at this point, because that's too many things to throw on, Mariota's plate if he's starting on Sunday as well.
Right. Yeah. As for the running game, Dan Quinn did mention that Chris Rodriguez will really get his shot. So there's not that that's a surprise, but they did sign Chase Edmonds, who has experience with Cliff in Arizona. He's played for a few different teams, to the practice squad. They recently got the Michigan back, Donovan Edwards. They put him on the practice squad. Obviously, Bill figures to see a lot more carries / opportunities. I do wonder, how much is he going to get? Are they really going to throw a lot on his plate now? Does McNichols get a little bit more? I have a feeling it's not a lot more in terms of carries and catches for him, that's going to go somewhere else. I think the carries now go probably to Chris Rodriguez, who was terrific in the summer, really altered his body at their request. Got a lot faster. I did an interview with him in the summer, and he had talked about that he had reached something close to 20 miles per hour, a handful of times last year, and it had happened numerous times this summer. We kind of saw that. So he gets his real open opportunity here. I think he was a little bit disappointed that he wasn't up and, active the first couple of games because of the way he performed. I think he kind of thought he would. Here's your shot now, and here's your shot long-term, because perform really well here. There's nobody in line to take your place. So he's going to have an opportunity here.
No, exactly. And I think that was one of the more, I wouldn't say shocking things, but I thought, maybe with him being out week 1, he'd be activated week 2 against Green Bay. Obviously, it didn't happen. Obviously, he probably wouldn't have gotten used that much, but I thought, he deserved a shot. Either way here, we've seen what he can do when he's been given the opportunity here. I feel comfortable with him out there as well. I know Dan Quinn said the same thing too. All these guys, he feels comfortable. I also thought it was pretty good that he complimented Bill on his pass pro yesterday as well. So yeah. It feels like I'm also one of these guys who last year we talked about it often. If they're comfortable with something, I'm comfortable with it. They seem to be comfortable with all of their running backs. And like I said, we've seen C-Rod actually perform before. I'm all right with this.
Yeah, I mean, and listen, everybody gets injuries, The Buccaneers are 2-0. Both of their tackles were out last night.
Yep.
Both of them. Like Tristan Wirfs didn't play. The other tackle got hurt in the middle of the game, left. Chris Godwin hasn't played yet. Jalen McMillan hasn't played yet. Emeka Egbuka pulled something. They had to wrap his leg last night. Like, everybody plays with injuries, like eventually, and ours are just kind of coming here early in the season. I hate that because it leaves you kind of thin. And then all of a sudden you're like hoping that nothing else kind of, steamrolls down the other way, but everybody does it. The Packers offensive line looked fine last night without their right tackle and their best guard, who they just paid $80 million. They were fine the other night. So we're going to have to be the same thing. You have to be resilient here. Just real quick, because we're talking injuries. There were 2 others that came up. The Burrow thing is official now. They're saying he'll be out a minimum of 3 months. So he's not coming back unless somehow, some way the Bengals have a shot for the playoffs. And there's no guarantee of that. It's a toe injury. So we're going to have to see. But that feels like their season's done. I mean, like with their defense being as, I don't know, like wonky as it is, like the whole thing for them all year for me was they're going to have to replicate what they did offensively last year. And that's kind of the only way that they're going to have the right type of record in that division. And I have a hard time, no offense, Jake Browning, I got a hard time buying that that's the way things are going to go for them. And then the other one was JJ McCarthy, who they've already said is not going to start for them in week 3. Our boy Carson Wentz is back. We got to send Scott up there to interview them to see how everything's going in Minnesota. So we got Wentz going next week for Minnesota, who all of a sudden they look shaky at 1-1 and easily could be 0-2 right now.
Well, it's funny you mentioned them. They play each other next week. That's the matchup, Browning versus Wentz in week 3. So have fun watching that game. I'll be nowhere near it. With McCarthy, it's very interesting. They actually play the Bengals next week. And then remember, they have 2 games back-to-back in Europe. Remember, they scheduled 2 in a row. Oh, that's right. So they've got to travel. And so the talk now is like, whatever McCarthy's injury is, do you want to fly him, across the pond to be over there for 2 weeks and all this too? So there's a little bit of a dicey situation there with Minnesota if you want to actually fly him. I don't know, if that injury is fine flying or not, but it's still a risk. You know how this works. Like when a guy is injured, like you don't like to fly because things swell up or whatever. So they have a little bit of a dicey situation over there with 2, games in Europe because they have, I forget where their 2 games are, but either way, they had the schedule where, they're doing 2 in a row, and so they don't have to travel separately.
I mean, we're staring down an upside down season already in the NFL with injuries like this. Either the Bengals or the Vikings or both could go completely sideways. The reality also is like, it wasn't like McCarthy and their offense was killing it with him out there. They had 1 good quarter out of 8, right. And they easily could be 0-2 right now. And I think we know that the idea that Wentz is going to come in there and save the season and become the savior for them feels, maybe a little too optimistic even for me to go there, as much as I love KOC. And with the Bengals, I mean, I think that guy's a pretty good backup, but he's a pretty good backup. And on a team where you have to score 30 plus to win every week, good luck with that. So it's going to be tough.
And Browning threw 3 picks the other day too? I think he threw 2 or 3 picks. I forget what it was. And not even a full game either. And that's the Jags defense, not, an amazing defense. I know the Jags are better, but you're already turning the ball over that much. I'm not buying it. Here's my question is, do either one of them call Atlanta to get your boy Kirk in either one of those scenarios? Yeah. Minnesota knows what they can get out of him. KOC knows what he can get out of them. The Bengals, I don't think they're going to do it mainly because of the salary, but there's a backup sitting in Atlanta that we know can be a good quarterback when given the chance. I wonder if anyone's made that phone call yet.
Yeah, I wonder too. All right, let me take a quick break. We'll talk about the Raiders and the Buccaneers games last night in a moment. Brady watch the show. ESPN 630 Sports Capital. Commanders fans, this is for you. Level up with the new AAA Commanders MVP membership. Get all the benefits of AAA like 24/7 roadside assistance plus 15% off Commanders gear at the online pro shop. Chances to win game tickets, access to exclusive MVP events, and unforgettable experiences. Already a AAA member? Add the Commanders MVP upgrade free. Head to AAA.com/Commanders to join the squad and put your fandom in drive. All right, welcome back. Gino got picked 3 times last night. Raiders lose their home opener after a road win in New England. Schedule makers are being friendly to us this time around. How many times in the last few years have I talked about how we got screwed by this? We played Thursday. They play Monday night, and then they have to turn around and do an East Coast trip, and it's their second in 3 weeks. That's a lot to ask. So of all the injuries, if we could circle the wagons here a little bit, the schedule makers have made this one a very winnable one, and especially if you watched them last night at home, it did not look good.
No, this was pretty bad. I had a lot more expectations for the Raiders for last night, being their home opener. As I've said too, they're a professional operation. They got Pete Carroll running the ship. Geno Smith should be better. Max Crosby's one of the best edge rushers in the league. I like their skill position group. I like Bowers. I like Genty. Like, they have a lot going for them, and they didn't look good last night. And I'm kind of mad at myself that I believed everyone telling me Geno was going to be better with them. Geno looks the same with them as he did in Seattle. I'm so mad at myself for listening to people on that one. Geno last year was bad. I mean, there were a lot of those primetime games where he just couldn't run that offense, and all these people blamed the offensive line and said it was all these other factors. And I just kind of always went, he's never been amazing, guys. This is kind of who he is. And last night, he looked just like that. So they've got to figure something out there. They can't get it going with all these skill position players. I think it's going to turn at some point, but right now, they kind of remind me of the Falcons, of years past, where they have all of these really good players. They're just not putting it together at the moment. They looked bad last night.
The Commanders have not caused a turnover yet this year. That's got to change this weekend. Okay.
Yes, agree. Agree. Yeah.
No excuses, guys. I think you need to get a couple maybe this weekend. It feels like he's going to give you some opportunities with Genty. And I was just kind of watching last night. I'll watch it much more closely, as the week progresses. And I haven't watched their first game yet, but I did see some clips from Genty in the preseason. Look, he looks the part in general, just size, speed, all that stuff. However, I don't think he has a total grasp of the offense yet. Like, he's not running where he's supposed to run. He screwed up a couple of plays last night where he went the wrong way and blew up a couple of plays on them. So he looks like a rookie to me. Like, this team was one of those that I pegged for. Carroll's there. They're going to be quarterbacked better in general, because as much as Geno can have moments like that, he also can throw for 350 and 4 touchdowns. Like, that can happen at any point. It's boom or bust with him. So when they get their stuff together, I would rather play them now than I would probably later in the season, because I have a feeling they'll be a different team when they get around to later in the season. And last night was kind of emblematic of that. Genty, I think, is going to be really, really good. Like, it's hard not to think he's going to be. Doesn't feel like that he totally is getting the offense or like where the ball is supposed to go. He's messing up some assignments. And then Bowers played last night, but he was iffy the whole week with a knee situation. So if he's not full optimal performance, and we saw what happened last week with the tight ends, we might be catching them at the right time. They're off a woeful offensive experience. Their 2 best offensive weapons, one's still getting integrated. The other one is marginalized a little bit. Their defense is pretty good, but not great, not like Green Bay's. We're catching this team. I know we have a lot of injuries, and I am very concerned if Jayden doesn't play, especially just the way the offense is functioning with him, let alone without him. I'm very worried, going into it. But I'm hoping between the schedule makers, them not looking great last night, that maybe we're getting the right team at the right time to survive and advance this week.
I think if there's one thing that if we're going to pull from last year that we pull for this year, we haven't seen it. Obviously, it's only week 3. I'm not trying to, hit the panic button or even compare this to last year yet. But what was one thing they did last year that was nice to see as a fan that's been rooting for them my whole entire life? It was nice to see them beat the bad teams last year and beat them pretty handedly, right? Like, they beat the Browns and they beat the Giants. The Giants were barely both times, but they beat the Giants, and they've had trouble with that. They beat the Titans. They beat teams like that all year long and beat them pretty handedly. When you have a team like this that doesn't look great, that's going from the West Coast to the East Coast on a short week, I expect them to win on Sunday. I know there's a bad mix of things here, but this is the type of team that if it was last year's team, that they would take care of business here. And that's one thing that I do have a little bit more faith in on a week like this, is because they took care of business when they really needed to last year with some of the teams that they should have beaten.
Also last night, we got to see Tom Brady in the coach's booth with them. Oddly, he was wearing a full 3-piece suit, which I found it looked odd with him sitting in with all the guys in their game day gear. And there he was sitting there. It felt almost like Death Star-esque. It was Darth Vader-ish the way he was doing that. I have no problem with it. He's a part owner of the team. And secondarily, like, who's got a better football mind than that guy? So this isn't Jim Irsay's daughter on the headset where people are going, wait a minute, like you're listening in and maybe potentially weighing in. It is Tom Brady, best quarterback ever, doing it. So I don't think there's some narrative of he's meddling, which I think easily could happen. But of all people that could meddle, I would assume he would be one that would be welcome to meddle at least a little bit.
On the Colts one, she's just listening, and I actually respect that. She said, I loved her quote on that. Does this person know what they're talking about, or are they just BSing me around? So she's listening in on that, and I love that, actually. Yeah. Like, she's not managing on the sidelines. She doesn't have an actual mouthpiece. She's just listening. And as an owner, you should be allowed to do that. And guess what? They're 2-0, guys, so who cares at that point? On the Brady thing,
they're the best story in the NFL right now. Like, they're 2-0, and they beat a good team the other day, and Dimes is having the revival. That's a good story.
Dimes has the best nickname in the NFL, Indiana Jones. It's the best nickname maybe of all time. Okay, so that's fantastic. Like, best story in the league. Don't get me wrong. On Brady, I'm surprised with Brady you're on board with this. The guy gets to talk with all of these teams every week. Remember, it was, he's not going to be in all these meetings, but now he is in all of these meetings. I'm surprised this is allowed, and they showed it like that, where he is getting inside info for some of these teams. Are they lining up the schedule so they don't line up his opponents? I haven't looked into it like that, but I don't know. There's something icky about this where he gets to talk with all these teams getting ready for a primetime game with Fox, then gets to step into the booth. And I know a lot of times they're going to be playing at the same time, but when he's not playing, he gets to do things like that. I don't know. I feel weird about it. It feels a little too Belichick to me, where a guy has some inside info and he gets to throw on a headset whenever he's not on the call. That's what I'm getting at.
Sure. Yeah. He is an owner, and it is him. Now, if he's changing calls in the middle of the game, I think that's where we're going to have a problem here. Or if he's, if he goes back into playing Tom, where he gets real super angry and starts communicating with people about how he's disappointed in what's going on with whatever, you didn't see this, you didn't see that. Well, then maybe that's a story. But him listening in, I got no issue with him listening in whatsoever for them.
Here's what I don't like, though. Who was on the call week 1 on TV? It was him with Commanders Giants. Now they're playing the Raiders next week. I don't like that. I don't like that. Like, even if it's one little thing that he gets to tell Chip Kelly about, that's BS, man.
So that's it. Yeah, they changed it this year. He gets to go to the meetings this year.
See, that's what I'm saying. Like, you said it was a good draw. Maybe it's not a good draw that Brady all of a sudden has all the state secrets here, especially with an operation that we've said has been very tight-lipped. So if the Raiders all of a sudden look like all-stars on Sunday, put my tinfoil hat, man. I'm calling it out that it was, Brady giving them a little bit of an edge.
The other one was the Buccaneers got a late TD to beat the Texans. Baker Mayfield came through. Bucky Irving made a couple of great plays. They survived in advance. That's a really good road win for them. They came in without Tristan Wirfs, who might be the best left tackle in the NFL, or at least he's one of them. Luke Goedeke, who had to move to the outside to play right tackle because they have an injury there. He got hurt, had to leave. So they were down to backups on both of their edges. They still moved the ball very effectively against a very, very good team. Egbuka had another touchdown. He's going to be a stud, but he had to get wrapped up in the middle of the game. Irving is very impressive. He is very, he's not going to be Bijan. He's not going to be Saquon, but he's going to be that tier right under it where he's dangerous. And Rachaad White is a backup. This is why I'm so bullish on them. They got a lot of ways to go where they can win, and they will have a few boomer bust games on defense where they blow you up because they're so hyper aggressive and they're healthy on that side of the ball. And there will be a few where they get caught. If you protect well against them, you can catch them, puts them on an island that they don't want to be in. But when they're hot and on and get the calls right, their defense can overtake a game. And offensively, I think they are probably as versatile as anybody in the NFL. It's why, and they're not playing the schedule that we or the Eagles are playing this year because we're playing the NFC North and the AFC West. They're not playing that. That feels like, and now that Carolina's start has happened the way it has, really feels like a two-team race, and they already beat one of those teams. It's why I'm so bullish about them this year, that if they're going to win games like this, then they easily could be, they're going to win that division, and they could be the 1 seed.
I thought the Bucs' second half plan was something that I thought we should have seen more from the Commanders. Their offensive line was banged up, but what did they start doing? Started calling some screens, started calling a couple draws. And I know Bucky Irving's better than any running back on this roster. I get that. But they slowed that pass rush down because they were still having their moments, but they were slowing them down here and there just enough to get that comeback going. Very good offensive plan for the Bucs that they were able to execute that. And I told you this yesterday. Sometimes early on in the season, it's just about trust. I trusted the Buccaneers more than I did the Texans, even though the Texans also, got that lead late. They just left too much time on the clock.
I don't like their offense at all. This is the second year in a row now. I don't know how much I attribute it to Stroud. I definitely attribute it to their offensive line is not better. Like they could not run the ball. Their offensive line is young and inexperienced. I'm less and less understanding why they traded Tunsil, watching what I watched last night. I get it. Mixon's been out, and so they're going with Chubb, and he looked fine. That's pretty darn good plan B if you have to go that way. Nico Collins disappeared. He's barely a factor in the offense after the early touchdown for them. Stroud misses a lot. Last year I was kind of like, I don't know. I guess I didn't watch him closely enough. He misses a lot. There's a lot left out there. They couldn't score on a first and goal at the 1. They couldn't score. The fourth down play they called was him rolling left to throw to one receiver. The option was limited. I didn't like that call. I don't know, man. That was bad vibes offensively about them. And while Anderson is a stud, Stingley is a stud, I buy that their defense is really good. But their offense has to be way better than this. Otherwise, they will not win that division. And that means they probably will not make the playoffs.
Yeah, this is a little bit, I know your jury is out on Stroud right now at this moment, but I know they traded for Diggs last year. That didn't go well because he got hurt. I'm not trying to blame them on that, but the Texans didn't go enough all in knowing they have a young quarterback. It's almost like they skipped the load stage around him to say, oh, you're one of the good ones. You should be able to carry this. It feels a little weird with him right now that they were kind of like, oh, you should be good enough to do this, where the offensive line is bad. I mean, it was Swiss cheese last night. They were not great. Nick Chubb is your starting running back. I know they've had, injuries happen there, but still, it just feels really weird that they've just kind of have been, oh, we've got our quarterback. He should be able to do whatever. And that's not the case at all. In fact, I think they've gotten worse over the last couple of years with him. It's a really kind of odd feeling in Houston with him. He should be better, but I also don't blame all of it on him either, I guess is what I'm getting at here.
All right, one more quick football story before we go. And I do wonder if this is going to happen this time or not, which is Shane Beamer to Virginia Tech. Because they just fired the coach there. They're 0-3. We're in a different world now where being in the ACC versus being in the SEC, it used to be a difference, but now it's a chasm between the two leagues. And I don't know what the future is going to be for the ACC in terms of trying to find a way to compete with the Big Ten and the SEC in this new world of college football. And maybe they'll figure out a way to do it because they've kept everybody intact for now, and we'll see how everything goes. Obviously, there's a tug at the heartstrings situation here with Frank Beamer being the legendary coach. Shane, I think, has done a very nice job at South Carolina, but when you lose to Vanderbilt 31-7, they will turn on you really fast, especially when everybody tells you you have an NFL quarterback, which I'm TBD on that guy. I actually watched them a little bit. I'm a little TBD on him being an NFL quarterback, but for college, he's probably one of the 5 to 10 best in the nation this year. So the expectations are just higher on him. And I read one story that basically said he's safe at South Carolina, a quote from a source, unless they turn on him, which could happen, which in college football with these fan bases, they turn on you at some point. The Alabama people wanted to stoned to death the coach there after they lost in their opener. So that could happen. And losing to Vanderbilt badly is not going to help your case. In this case, though, because this isn't 15 years ago, this is a step down if he were to go and take this job. No offense to Virginia Tech. It's the league that they're in. It's not them. It's the league that they're in. And so he would be taking a job. One, can he compete at the highest level there like his father used to be able to a certain degree? I'm not sure. Do they have the resources to do it? I'm not sure. It's not as prominent as it used to be as a league. So I don't feel like this is the right move for him unless he just wants to do it because South Carolina's pissed at him and he loves Virginia Tech and he just wants to do it. I don't see this as a viable thing in the modern current format of what the ACC and SEC are, but I don't know. Maybe his heartstrings get tugged in a way that he just wants to do it.
It might be more secure, but what's secure in college football these days? I don't really know.
He's gonna have a hard time winning there too, and that's the point. Like that's the other point here. Like he doesn't go there and make them a juggernaut again. He maybe gets them back to being respectable again.
Well, and there's also a bigger question here. This is now the second, head coach after Beamer that hasn't not just been not good, but he was terrible. Pry was awful, and you're now asking the questions because there was an ESPN hit piece on the administration, last year or the year before. You need to get that figured out too, if you're Tech as well. So you have a lot more questions than just the coach here. You need to figure out the AD situation. You need to figure out the funding situation, like how Virginia Tech football doesn't have a good system for this yet is crazy to me. It's the lifeblood of the athletic program at this point. They have a lot more questions than just coach. When it comes to Beamer, I don't think he's going there unless they kind of can say, oh, yeah, we're going to be joining the SEC one day. I told you like 5 years ago, that's not happening. They're not that program anymore. They haven't been that program for a long time. So unless he wants something that I guess where maybe he gets a longer runway and he feels nostalgic for Blacksburg, sure, but I don't see that happening. And I've said this to you because you always like to joke that I'm a Tech fan. I haven't watched Tech in a long time because they're not worth watching anymore. So for me, it's just been more get back to being respectable because this fan base too, I always say this fan base, we've never expected for you to be in the college football playoff. We expect you to be over 500, get into a bowl game and beat UVA. And those check boxes have not been happening lately. And so what I'll say is get back to being respectable. And then we can talk about getting a bigger name head coach like Beamer.
If I'm him, I'm going, what is your budget to pay the players?
Yep. 100%. Absolutely.
And if it's nothing close to South Carolina's, which it probably isn't, sorry guys, times have changed.
Yep.
100%. I love you. I'll love you forever, but times have changed. Yep. All right. We'll take a quick break. Very much the show is at 6:30, the Sports Capital. Commanders fans, this is for you. Level up with the new AAA Commanders MVP membership. Get all the benefits of AAA like 24/7 roadside assistance plus 15% off Commanders gear at the online pro shop. Chances to win game tickets, access to exclusive MVP events, and unforgettable experiences. Already a AAA member? Add the Commanders MVP upgrade for free. Head to AAA.com/Commanders to join the squad and put your fandom in drive. All right, welcome back. I want to do two baseball things real quick that I saw these, that there are changes coming to both of the local teams. The Orioles are going to expand their front office. So Mike Elias, I guess quietly, got elevated to a president of baseball operations, and underneath him will be an unnamed general manager. And it is, I don't know who this is going to be, but this is felt for a while. Elias is very good at acquiring very good prospects. And the person managing the actual major league roster is not in the building and not doing a good job. And that's been the absentee part of this whole thing. And now that these guys are getting just a little bit older, and some of them have to get paid at some point, the asset management part of this, or deciding who gets money or who doesn't, that needs to happen now. And we need an MLB GM to do that immediately.
The Elias thing is really weird. He was elevated in the offseason and nobody found out about this. There was no announcement about this.
That's weird.
I don't care like how you do things. This is a really weird one, especially for somebody that is, essentially the architect of this modern day Orioles roster. there was a lot of heat on him early on in the year too, of how they started out. Was he, stepping out from those flames because he's going, that's not my business right now? I mean, look, I have no doubt they're going to be better, now that they're not under the Angelos ownership, but this is one of the weirdest ones in a while. A guy getting elevated to president of baseball ops and not getting that announcement, I'm just calling that weird. And so, look, glad they're going to get a GM, all this, but that's an odd situation. Orioles, by the way, the last month have actually been really fun to watch. It seems like they kind of turn things around. So hopefully going into next year, they'll be better. But I'm just going to say, weird optics there, guys, that this happened before a game was played and nobody said anything.
The other one's the Nationals that are looking at what now appears to be a complete front office change, which was an open question when they elevated the interim GM who was inside the building. And then he gave the press conference saying, I am going to do things very differently and analytics should be part of all this stuff. And I'm sitting there going, where you been, pal? Like, hello. This is not a surprise. And I do think it is the right thing to do. No offense to anybody that's in that front office now, but a clean slate is necessary. For me, if I were someone interviewing for these jobs and I saw some of the names that were floated out there, this one particular guy from the Cubs, they've had a hell of a turnaround with Chicago, the Dodgers, obviously they're looking at. The questions I would ask are, what are the resources you are going to put into? These are the things we need to do this. They don't seem to be in place now. Are you committed to putting them in place if we were to come in here? And I'll wait for your answer, Mr. Lerner.
Yeah, the Nationals are the equivalent of Virginia Tech for me right now. Come talk to me when you spend money for a contract. I don't care what any of this does in terms of who they bring in, where they're coming from. You could have a whole opening press conference and then free agency opens up and you don't spend a dime. I know what I'm getting on the other side of this. So this is all nice and all, but come talk to me when they shell out a contract that's worth talking about, essentially. This is how I've landed with this team right now.
I agree with that. I also know that one of the chief complaints is that they have had one of the thinnest scouting departments,
sure.
International stuff, like sure. The analytics departments are weak. Like, welcome to modern baseball. It takes resources to win. So for any of these people to come in here, I want to know, what are the resources I'm working with? Right. And also secondarily, our payroll is what it is. All these things are off your books. Are we going to get some players around here?
Right. Like, that's all nice. And that should improve them. But like I said, come talk to me when the best resources used, money, and it's helped to shore up this roster a little bit, because that didn't happen last year. They're worse than they were last year. So let's see if that comes out on the other side. This is all nice, but I think it all comes overall, are you actually going to be spending or not? Because you and I know this too. You can spend on the front office and spend on a scouting department. It's pennies compared to what a major contract actually looks like too. So, Come talk to me when they actually spend a little bit of money, and I'll actually be able to, get excited about a new change for this franchise.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Talk to you tomorrow. Brad Boyce Show, ESPN 630, The Sports Capital.